There are years in basketball history that simply exist, and then there are years that define an era. The 2010 NBA season was not just another chapter in the league's story, it was a closing act, the final verse of one dynasty and the quiet dawn of another. It was the year when legacies were tested, when loyalty was questioned, and when greatness, true greatness, stood alone in the light of June. In cities like Los Angeles, Boston, Cleveland, and Orlando, hope was currency, and pressure was oxygen. A league of icons stood at the crossroads. Kobe Bryant determined to chase ghosts. LeBron James desperate to claim his throne. Kevin Durant, the young prodigy stepping out of the shadows. What followed was a season of brilliance and heartbreak, of redemption and collapse. Told not in shouts, but in whispers, sweat, and the echo of bouncing leather under bright lights. This is the story of the 2010 NBA season.
Chapter 1. The Calm Before the Storm. It was the summer of 2009, and Los Angeles glowed in gold once again. The confetti had long settled inside Staples Center, but for Kobe Bryant, the celebration was brief. He had finally climbed the mountain without Shaquille O'Neal beside him, fourth championship in hand, finals MVP around his neck, and yet, somewhere deep within, the fire still burned. "Job's not finished," he had once said, years earlier. And even now, with the world at his feet, it still wasn't. Kobe was 31 years old, a veteran who'd spent nearly half his life inside the NBA. He had mastered every angle of the game, every spin, every fade, every feint. But mastery had made him restless. He spoke little that summer. He trained often, sometimes alone in the empty practice facility, the echo of the ball his only companion. Those who knew him best could sense it. The quiet man in the gym was already planning the next season. Elsewhere in the league, the mood was far less peaceful. In Cleveland, LeBron James was coming off the best year of his young career. 66 wins, a unanimous MVP, and another painful ending. Orlando had stopped him cold in the conference finals, and as he walked off the court that night, cameras caught something rare, a glance, half anger, half disbelief. He didn't shake hands, he simply vanished into the tunnel. That image lingered all summer. Reporters debated his leadership. Analysts wondered if destiny had slipped away. LeBron himself said little, only, "We'll be back." Boston, meanwhile, nursed its own regrets. The Celtics, once invincible, had fallen in the second round. Kevin Garnett had missed the playoffs entirely, his knee still aching from the injury that ended their title defense. Paul Pierce and Ray Allen were older now, their window shrinking by the month. Doc Rivers knew the truth. If they were to make one last run, it had to be soon. Down in Orlando, Dwight Howard grinned through interviews, a 23-year-old superstar who had just carried his team to the finals. The Magic had fallen to the Lakers, but in defeat, there was belief. They traded for Vince Carter, hoping experience could take them that final step. And far away from the spotlight, in a small market called Oklahoma City, something new was forming. A 21-year-old named Kevin Durant had quietly finished as the league's fourth leading scorer. Beside him, a wiry guard named Russell Westbrook and a calm rookie named James Harden were learning the craft. They were years away from contention, but already you could feel it. The beginning of something that would soon shake the league. As the months passed, the league seemed suspended between eras. The old titans, Kobe, Garnett, Duncan, still ruled the landscape. Yet the next generation pressed against the door. There was anticipation in the air, a sense that the coming season might decide whose world this truly was. The headlines reflected that restlessness. Ron Artest signs with the Lakers. Shaq joins LeBron in Cleveland. Boston adds Rasheed Wallace. Each move carried a story. Artest, the once wild rival who'd battled Kobe in bruising duels, was now his teammate. A test of trust and of temper. Shaquille O'Neal, older but still powerful, promised to deliver a title to the King. And Boston's signing of Rasheed felt like one final, desperate push for glory. The league was a chessboard again, pieces moving toward another collision. Training camps opened beneath autumn skies. Reporters flooded gyms, capturing familiar sights. LeBron laughing with Shaq, Dwight Howard spinning hooks in practice, Garnett pounding his chest before drills. In Los Angeles, Kobe arrived before dawn, as always. Phil Jackson watched quietly, arms folded. He'd seen this look before. When he locks in like that, Jackson once said, there's no one else on his level. Outside the arenas, the world had changed too. Twitter was new. Highlights traveled faster. Every buzzer beater, every stumble, every word could circle the globe within minutes. For the players, there would be no hiding this season. And so, as October arrived, the league inhaled. Old rivalries were reborn. New ambitions whispered through locker rooms. Fans in Boston spoke of redemption. Fans in Cleveland of destiny. And in Los Angeles, one man spoke of nothing at all. The season was about to begin, and somewhere in the quiet before the first tip-off, you could almost hear the hum of inevitability, the sense that this would be the year everything changed. Chapter 2: Off-season moves and shifting power. The summer heat began to fade, and with it came change. For every team that had fallen short the year before, there was the same ritual: reflection, reconstruction, and hope. In Cleveland, the Cavaliers sought reinforcements for their young monarch. LeBron James had carried them farther than any single player should. 66 wins, another MVP. But when the Magic had broken them in 6 games, the weakness was exposed. Cleveland was strong, but not complete. And so the Cavaliers turned to an old giant, Shaquille O'Neal. It felt almost mythic at the time, the fading legend and the rising star united by a single mission. Shaq arrived in Cleveland with one simple line: "My only job is to win a ring for the king." For LeBron, it was both thrilling and fragile. Shaq was 37 now, his best years a memory, but the name still carried power. They added Anthony Parker, Jamario Moon, and a promise that this time Cleveland's story would end differently. Elsewhere in the East, the Orlando Magic adjusted quietly but boldly. Their finals run had proven they belonged, but also that something was missing. They traded away Hedo Turkoglu, the playmaker who'd orchestrated their offense, and brought in Vince Carter. At 32, Carter was no longer the high-flying prodigy he once was, but his experience and poise could steady a young team. General Manager Otis Smith called it the final piece. History, as it turned out, would disagree. In Boston, the Celtics looked inward. Kevin Garnett's injury had stolen their rhythm, their defensive spirit, their edge. Doc Rivers gathered the team in training camp and told them plainly, "We have one more run in us, but it has to be together." They brought in Rasheed Wallace, a battle-tested big man with a fiery temperament and a smooth three-point shot. In theory, he'd stretch the floor and fortify the bench. In practice, he'd test patience. Still, the Celtics' core, Pierce, Allen, Garnett, Rondo, remained intact. Their identity was clear: grit, experience, unity. And then there were the Lakers. Fresh off a championship, they could have rested. But Kobe Bryant was not wired for rest. He'd lost his trusted forward Trevor Ariza to free agency, a sharp young wing who'd hit timely shots in the finals. In his place came someone entirely different: Ron Artest. Artest was unpredictable, volatile, and fiercely competitive. He had once brawled in the stands. He'd once been Kobe's tormentor. Now they would share a locker room. When the signing was announced, reporters questioned the fit. Would two of the league's most intense personalities clash? Would trust hold? Phil Jackson smiled. He had seen transformation before. "Ron," he said, "this is your chance to find peace through the game." And in that simple statement, the season's emotional heart began to take shape. A season of redemption, of shifting power, of old legends chasing closure while the young pressed forward. In San Antonio, Tim Duncan's Spurs were evolving quietly. Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili were now veterans, and a new name, George Hill, was rising. They acquired Richard Jefferson, another effort to surround Duncan with scorers. It was subtle, but the Spurs were never loud. They simply prepared. Denver, led by Carmelo Anthony and Chauncey Billups, believed the West was open again. Dallas retooled around Dirk Nowitzki, and in Phoenix, something remarkable stirred. Steve Nash, at 35, refused to fade. He spoke softly of one last charge, and alongside him, Amare Stoudemire sought redemption for years lost to injury. The NBA landscape, once dominated by single dynasties, now felt like an open field. 8 or 9 teams, each with a claim to destiny. As pre-season tipped off, the stories began to intertwine. Kobe and Ron Artest learning trust through tension. LeBron and Shaq smiling for cameras but straining for chemistry. Boston bruised but defiant. Orlando younger, faster, louder. And then quietly, out west, Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant averaged 25 points the year before, but few noticed. This year the league would have no choice. He was taller than most wings, smoother than most guards, and hungrier than most stars. Beside him, Russell Westbrook was chaos in motion, raw, fearless, electric. They were still children in the game, but there was something poetic about their rise amid the fading of giants. By the time October 27th arrived, the stage was set. The 2009 to 2010 NBA season began not with explosions, but with expectation. Every arena carried its own quiet promise. Every city its own fragile hope. In Los Angeles, a banner hung above the court. Championship number 15. The crowd roared as the rings were handed out. Kobe accepted his, smiled slightly, and then turned away before the applause had even finished. "Let's get another one," he said simply. And with that, the journey began. Chapter 3. The regular season. Kings, rivals, and rising stars. The season opened beneath autumn skies, the kind of cold that turns breath into mist outside the arena doors. Inside, the lights burned bright, and 29 cities waited for something to believe in. For the defending champions in Los Angeles, belief came easily, at least at first. The Lakers started fast. Kobe Bryant looked unbothered by the miles on his body, the familiar scowl already etched in place. He scored, he defended, he led. But what truly defined those early weeks was something subtler: patience. Ron Artest was learning the triangle offense, a system built on trust and rhythm. At first he hesitated, moving without the ball, unsure of his place. Kobe guided him with small gestures, a nod here, a hand signal there. Phil Jackson watched from the sideline, serene as ever. Slowly the tension began to ease. Meanwhile, Pau Gasol's quiet brilliance continued to anchor everything. Soft hands, perfect footwork, unselfish decisions. If Kobe was the fire, Gasol was the calm beneath it. The Lakers rolled through November and December, stacking wins as though they were routine. But Kobe's body was changing. A fractured finger on his shooting hand, a swollen knee that refused to rest. He played anyway, always did. He once said, almost to himself, "If I can walk, I can play." And play he did, sometimes through pain that would sideline others for weeks. Across the country, Cleveland was chasing ghosts of its own. LeBron James entered the season with renewed fury, determined to prove that last year's disappointment was a fluke. Shaquille O'Neal lumbered beside him, smiling, joking, promising dominance. The chemistry was uneven, but when it clicked, it was overwhelming. LeBron's blend of power and grace reached a level that left opponents helpless. He attacked the rim with such force that arenas gasped before the dunk even landed. Cleveland surged to the top of the East. Every win felt like confirmation, every stumble like a premonition. The whispers began. Would this be his last year in Cleveland? He never answered, only smiled, that cryptic smile. "I'm focused on the season," he'd say. "Everything else will take care of itself." In Boston, the mood was heavier. The Celtics began the year strong, defensive, disciplined, familiar. But as winter deepened, so did the fatigue. Kevin Garnett's knee ached again. Paul Pierce missed games. Ray Allen struggled to find rhythm. And yet, the young guard Rajon Rondo began to shine through the cracks. Rondo was chaos and beauty intertwined, slipping through defenders, setting up teammates with passes that seemed to appear from nowhere. Doc Rivers called him our engine, and soon the veterans began to believe it. Still, the Celtics lost games they once would have strangled in the final minutes. The dynasty felt fragile. Chapter 3. The regular season. Kings, rivals, and rising stars. The season opened beneath autumn skies, the kind of cold that turns breath into mist outside the arena doors. Inside, the lights burned bright, and 29 cities waited for something to believe in. For the defending champions in Los Angeles, belief came easily, at least at first. The Lakers started fast. Kobe Bryant looked unbothered by the miles on his body, the familiar scowl already etched in place. He scored, he defended, he led. But what truly defined those early weeks was something subtler: patience. Ron Artest was learning the triangle offense, a system built on trust and rhythm. At first he hesitated, moving without the ball, unsure of his place. Kobe guided him with small gestures, a nod here, a hand signal there. Phil Jackson watched from the sideline, serene as ever. Slowly the tension began to ease. Meanwhile, Pau Gasol's quiet brilliance continued to anchor everything. Soft hands, perfect footwork, unselfish decisions. If Kobe was the fire, Gasol was the calm beneath it. The Lakers rolled through November and December, stacking wins as though they were routine. But Kobe's body was changing. A fractured finger on his shooting hand, a swollen knee that refused to rest. He played anyway, always did. He once said, almost to himself, "If I can walk, I can play." And play he did, sometimes through pain that would sideline others for weeks. Across the country, Cleveland was chasing ghosts of its own. LeBron James entered the season with renewed fury, determined to prove that last year's disappointment was a fluke. Shaquille O'Neal lumbered beside him, smiling, joking, promising dominance. The chemistry was uneven, but when it clicked, it was overwhelming. LeBron's blend of power and grace reached a level that left opponents helpless. He attacked the rim with such force that arenas gasped before the dunk even landed. Cleveland surged to the top of the East. Every win felt like confirmation, every stumble like a premonition. The whispers began. Would this be his last year in Cleveland? He never answered, only smiled, that cryptic smile. "I'm focused on the season," he'd say. "Everything else will take care of itself." In Boston, the mood was heavier. The Celtics began the year strong, defensive, disciplined, familiar. But as winter deepened, so did the fatigue. Kevin Garnett's knee ached again. Paul Pierce missed games. Ray Allen struggled to find rhythm. And yet, the young guard Rajon Rondo began to shine through the cracks. Rondo was chaos and beauty intertwined, slipping through defenders, setting up teammates with passes that seemed to appear from nowhere. Doc Rivers called him our engine, and soon the veterans began to believe it. Still, the Celtics lost games they once would have strangled in the final minutes. The dynasty felt fragile. Orlando hummed along, quietly efficient. Dwight Howard's defense remained the league's most intimidating wall, and Rashard Lewis spaced the floor. But Vince Carter's arrival hadn't quite filled the void Hedo Turkoglu left. Something about the team felt less fluid, less joyful, good, but no longer magical. And down in Miami, Dwayne Wade was carrying a franchise by sheer will. He'd later described that year as exhausting but necessary. Every night, 35 points or more. Every night, the same question from reporters: would he stay? While the headlines obsessed over the superstars, the future of the league was quietly revealing itself. In Oklahoma City, Kevin Durant began to bloom into something transcendent. At 21, he led the league in scoring, 30.1 points per game, with the ease of a veteran. His jumper was pure, his demeanor quiet. Reporters tried to draw comparisons. He brushed them off with a shy grin. "I just love the game," he said. "That's all I want to do." The Thunder, who'd won only 23 games the year before, suddenly won 50. Their youthful energy felt contagious. Russell Westbrook's relentless pace, Serge Ibaka's raw athleticism, James Harden's smooth left hand. It all clicked sooner than anyone imagined. By February, a new narrative began to take shape. The old guard still stood tall, but the shadows of the next era were growing longer. The All-Star break arrived in Dallas, beneath a clear Texas sky. LeBron and Kobe shared the stage, though Kobe sat out nursing injuries. The spotlight found Dwayne Wade, who danced through defenders to win the game's MVP. It was a reminder. The league was balanced on a knife's edge. As the second half of the season unfolded, drama crept in from all directions. Cleveland traded for Antoine Jameson, a move meant to push them over the top. The Lakers stumbled through fatigue and nagging injuries, losing stretches they shouldn't have. Boston drifted in and out of form, while Orlando quietly gathered wins. In Denver, Carmelo Anthony put together perhaps the finest regular season of his career. Effortless scoring, confident leadership. But tragedy struck when coach George Karl was diagnosed with throat cancer. The Nuggets would play on in his absence, but their rhythm never fully returned. In Phoenix, Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire rediscovered their magic. Night after night, the Suns played basketball that looked like joy itself. Movement, passing, laughter. It was beautiful and fleeting and entirely theirs. As April approached, the standings took shape. Cleveland, again, finished with the best record in basketball. LeBron claimed his second straight MVP, this time almost unanimously. The Lakers held the West, though barely, their late-season form shaky. Orlando was steady, Boston wobbly, and Oklahoma City, remarkably, secured the 8th seed. The regular season ended not with fireworks, but with tension. There was a sense of stillness before the coming storm. The Lakers were tired, yet proud. Cleveland was confident, yet anxious. Boston was wounded, yet waiting. And in Oklahoma City, the children were about to challenge the Kings. When the final buzzer sounded on Game 82, the records vanished. The playoffs were here, and somewhere, deep within the hum of arenas preparing for battle, the air grew heavy with memory and with fate.
Chapter 4. The Playoffs. Round 1. The Arrival of the New Era. April 2010. 82 games had thinned the air. The court lights felt brighter now, the pauses between whistles heavier. Every team that remained could hear its own heartbeat. Los Angeles versus Oklahoma City. For the first time in his career, Kobe Bryant faced a team young enough to have grown up watching him. Kevin Durant, barely 21, called Kobe his idol. Now he was his opponent. The Lakers entered as the seasoned champions, the Thunder, wide-eyed and fearless. Game 1 in Los Angeles went as most expected. Controlled pace, deliberate execution, the defending champs up 1-0. But what followed surprised even them. Oklahoma City turned the series into a sprint. Russell Westbrook attacked every seam. Durant scored in bursts that seemed effortless. And their crowd, inside the roaring Ford Center, felt like a living thing. The noise was so loud that veterans said their jerseys vibrated. Kobe responded the only way he knew how: precision through chaos. He slowed the game down, hunted mismatches, and in Game 6, with the Thunder threatening to force a 7th, he rose from the right baseline for the shot that silenced the storm. The ball arced, touched the front rim, the back, and fell. Series over. The young had announced themselves, but the crown remained with the king. "They're going to be around for a long time," Kobe said afterward, sweat beading down his face. "That's the future right there." Cleveland versus Chicago. In the East, LeBron James looked untouchable. The Cavaliers met a scrappy Bulls team led by a rookie-aged Derrick Rose who attacked every possession as though unaware he was supposed to lose. LeBron averaged nearly a triple-double. Shaq provided brief flashes of his old power, and Cleveland rolled through in 5. Between games, cameras caught LeBron telling Rose, "Keep doing what you're doing, young fella." It was both compliment and warning. Orlando versus Charlotte. Orlando versus Charlotte. The Magic dismantled the Bobcats with surgical calm. Dwight Howard patrolled the paint like a sentry, blocking more shots than Charlotte could imagine. It was a sweep, quiet, efficient, and almost cold. No drama, just control. Boston versus Miami. Old rivals meeting again. Dwayne Wade had carried the Heat all season. Boston had wobbled towards spring. But in the playoffs, memory can be power. Game 1 went Boston's way, all defense and poise. Then Wade erupted 46 points in Game 4 to steal a single win. Yet even he could not fight history alone. Garnett roared, Pierce steadied, and Rondo, ever the unpredictable engine, commanded everything. Boston won in 5, and as they walked off, the whispers began. Perhaps the Celtics weren't finished after all. Atlanta versus Milwaukee. Elsewhere, the Hawks and Bucks waged a forgotten war. 7 games of grit, elbows, and improbable runs. Brandon Jennings, a rookie, nearly stole the series. But Atlanta's veteran core, Joe Johnson, Josh Smith, Al Horford, survived, if only barely. Phoenix versus Portland, out west. The Suns rediscovered sunlight. Steve Nash's passing glittered. Amare Stoudemire looked reborn, and Jason Richardson hit shot after shot. Portland fought bravely despite injuries, but the series belonged to Phoenix, 4-2. When asked about Nash, coach Alvin Gentry smiled. "He's not getting older," he said, "just calmer." Dallas versus San Antonio. The Spurs, thought to be fading, reminded everyone that experience can still bite. Dallas entered as the higher seed. Dirk Nowitzki was in peak form. But San Antonio's discipline, Ginobili's slashing, Duncan's quiet dominance, George Hill's emergence, stole the series in 6. It felt like the old Spurs again, precise and merciless. Denver versus Utah. The final matchup of the round became an epic many forgot. Carmelo Anthony and Deron Williams traded masterpieces. Utah, led by Carlos Boozer and a relentless crowd, wore Denver down. Without coach George Karl's steady hand, the Nuggets fractured. Utah advanced in 6, their offense humming like a metronome. When the first round ended, the league felt renewed. The old had survived, but only just. The Thunder had announced their arrival. LeBron looked invincible. Boston looked reborn. And somewhere, Kobe Bryant laced his shoes in silence, knowing the road ahead would demand everything. Chapter 5, Round 2, The Collapse and the Comeback. May had arrived quietly. The air outside was warming, but inside the arenas, tension hung like a fog. Each bounce of the ball, each whistle, each soft groan from the crowd carried meaning. The first round had filtered the weak, leaving only those who could endure. And now, the real trials began. Los Angeles Lakers versus Utah Jazz. The Lakers, despite their championship pedigree, were not without scars. Injuries had taken their toll. Kobe's nagging finger and knee, Gasol's fatigue, and the Jazz, led by Deron Williams and Carlos Boozer, smelled vulnerability. Game 1 was a statement. Kobe, despite his ailments, drove to the rim with relentless focus. Ron Artest, now comfortable in the triangle, contributed timely threes and defensive stops. By the fourth quarter, the Jazz were gasping. The Lakers had taken control, winning comfortably. But Utah fought back in Game 2, using pick and rolls and relentless perimeter shooting to steal a narrow victory. The Lakers, however, recalibrated. Game 3 saw Gasol dominate the paint, and Kobe, ever persistent, hit the game-winning shot in the final seconds. The series stretched to 6 games, each closer than the last. Yet, in the end, Los Angeles advanced, their championship aura intact but tested. Kobe later reflected, "They pushed us more than anyone else. That's what makes winning feel like winning." Phoenix Suns versus San Antonio Spurs. The West had become a battlefield of contrasting philosophies. The Spurs, disciplined and precise, met the Suns, fluid and free. Game 1 in Phoenix was a blur of movement. Steve Nash weaving through defenders, Amare Stoudemire finishing impossibly, and Jason Richardson raining threes. San Antonio stayed composed, but the pace was relentless. By Game 4, the series seemed destined for the Suns.
But the Spurs' experience showed in moments often overlooked: quiet rebounds, subtle screens, defensive rotations that stifled Nash at crucial junctures. Game 5 in San Antonio became a chess match. Every possession was deliberate, every shot calculated. The Spurs stole a close one, yet Phoenix's youth and rhythm proved stronger in the final moments. By Game 6, Nash orchestrated the offense like a maestro. Stoudemire dominated inside, and Phoenix advanced to the conference finals. Nash, in a quiet interview, said, "It's not about being the fastest or strongest. It's about knowing where you are in the music of the game." Cleveland Cavaliers versus Boston Celtics. In the East, the stakes could not have been higher. Cleveland had dominated the first round with LeBron at his peak, elegant, unstoppable, untouchable. Boston, scarred by age and injuries, was quietly menacing, led by the veteran instincts of Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett. Game 1 at Cleveland was textbook dominance. LeBron poured in 36 points. Shaq controlled the paint, and the Cavs appeared invincible. But Boston had other ideas. In Game 2, the Celtics adjusted, with defensive schemes that suffocated LeBron's usual freedom. Rondo orchestrated the offense with terrifying precision. Pierce and Allen found rhythm, and Boston eked out a narrow win on the road. Then came Game 3. Boston, now home, played with a kind of quiet desperation. Every shot mattered. Every rebound was fought for, every steal a story. Rondo exploded with 29 points, 18 rebounds, and 13 assists. The arena felt alive, electric, almost mythical. LeBron seemed human, suddenly vulnerable. Game 4 carried that tension further. The Cavaliers, expected to retake control, fell short again. Game 5 in Cleveland became an unthinkable collapse. LeBron, who had dominated the league all season, struggled to assert himself. Boston won by 32 points, and the arena erupted in disbelief. LeBron later admitted, "It was one of those nights where nothing goes right, and you feel it everywhere." Game 6 sealed the series. The Celtics' experience, chemistry, and calm ruthlessness overwhelmed the Cavs. Cleveland's season ended in heartbreak. For Boston, it was redemption, a reminder that the old guard still had teeth. Orlando Magic versus Atlanta Hawks. Meanwhile, the Magic faced the Hawks. Dwight Howard remained the unmovable pillar of Orlando's defense, blocking, rebounding, dominating. Vince Carter provided the experience, but Atlanta refused to wilt. Game 3 went down to the wire, with Joe Johnson hitting a late three to tie the game, only for Orlando to respond with Hedo Turkoglu's fadeaway. The Magic ultimately advanced in 5 games, but not without testing their resilience.
Milwaukee Bucks and other matchups. Other series concluded quietly, leaving little trace in headlines but adding to the subtle tension of the playoffs. The league's landscape was clear now. The old Titans had survived the first round, the young stars had arrived, and the second round had begun to separate the truly elite. As the dust settled, the narratives began to crystallize. LeBron James, despite all his brilliance, had been humbled. Kobe Bryant, tested but undefeated in his quest for defense and vengeance, pressed on. The Celtics, aging yet wise, proved that strategy and experience could still topple raw power. And the Thunder, they waited in the wings, a whisper of the future, patient, observing, hungry. May had given the NBA stories worth telling, but June was waiting. And in those stories, quiet and reflective, the weight of history pressed down on every team, every player, and every fan. Chapter 6. Conference Finals. Destiny meets resistance. May had passed quietly, but the air now was thick with expectation. Only 8 teams remained,
Each had survived fire and storm, and now the gates to the NBA Finals awaited. Western Conference, Los Angeles Lakers versus Phoenix Suns. The Lakers arrived first, veterans tempered by pain and triumph. Kobe Bryant, a shadow of his former physical self but not of his will, moved slowly but deliberately across the court. Ron Artest, now fully acclimated to the triangle, played with measured precision. Phoenix, however, was a storm incarnate. Steve Nash orchestrated the offense with calm fury. Amare Stoudemire, his knees healed but still marked by past injury, soared through the paint. Jason Richardson and Channing Frye punctuated the game with bursts of brilliance. Game 1 was close. Every possession seemed to stretch time itself. Kobe scored at will, his mid-range jumper a whisper against the raucous crowd. But Nash, ever patient, dished to Amare for the decisive basket. The Suns won not by dominance, but by the quiet orchestration of perfection. Game 2 belonged to the Lakers. Gasol controlled the boards, Artest hit crucial threes, and Kobe, though visibly limping, drove relentlessly to the rim. Game 3 in Phoenix became a chess match, each coach's strategy layered upon the other. Defensive rotations, subtle picks, fast breaks traded like currency. The Suns eked out a narrow victory, yet the Lakers refused to bend. By Game 5, the series seemed as much psychological as physical. Kobe took a back seat, allowing Gasol to dictate the paint, Artest to patrol the perimeter. The Lakers veterans knew this was a test of patience, of endurance, of calm under the furnace of expectation. They won Game 5, and with a clinical performance in Game 6, closed the series. The Lakers were headed to the finals again. "It's not about how hard you play," Kobe said afterward, voice low, almost a whisper. "It's about how calm you remain when the world expects you to break." Eastern Conference, Boston Celtics versus Orlando Magic. Boston, scarred and tested, faced Orlando next. Dwight Howard remained the unmovable pillar, blocking shots and controlling rebounds. Vince Carter provided steadiness. Rashard Lewis moved through the offense with grace. Boston's approach was different. Experience and patience, each veteran understanding his role in the larger machine. Game 1 in Boston was clinical. Pierce scoring when needed. Garnett defending with the force of memory. Rondo orchestrating the chaos. Orlando refused to falter. They traded baskets, swung momentum, but Boston's poise proved superior. Game 3 in Orlando became a masterclass in defensive adjustment. Howard's dominance could not overcome the Celtics' rotations. Rondo's passing seemed almost telepathic, finding shooters in places no one else could see. Boston won in 6 games, advancing to the finals to face the Lakers. "We're not finished," Pierce said quietly, almost to himself. "We have one more story to write." The emotional undercurrents. Across both conferences, the narratives intertwined like threads in a tapestry. Kobe Bryant, chasing redemption from the 2008 finals, moved with a quiet, obsessive intensity. LeBron James, humbled by Boston's victory, looked inward, aware of unfinished business yet powerless to intervene. The Celtics, the old guard, proved that wisdom and patience could topple raw talent. And Phoenix, the young storm, had tested the Lakers in ways no one had expected, leaving only memories of brilliance behind. The conference finals had separated the prepared from the fortunate. It had revealed the champions before the champions could even rise. And now only one final series remained. June waited. The NBA Finals, the rematch of 2 storied franchises, Lakers and Celtics, beckoned. It was to be a battle of legend against legend, of fire against wisdom, of obsession against experience. And somewhere, in the quiet locker rooms, each player knew history would remember only the survivor. Chapter 7. The 2010 NBA Finals, Lakers vs. Celtics, 2 June 2010. The stage was set. 2 cities, 2 legacies, 2 champions of a different time, converging beneath the bright lights of Staples Center and the echoes of history. This was not a finals born of surprise. This was a finals steeped in rivalry. A rematch of 2008, when Boston had dismantled Los Angeles in 6 games. Now, 2 years later, the air itself seemed heavy with expectation, regret, and determination. Game 1, Staples Center. The Lakers, champions of 2009, carried confidence tempered by humility. Kobe Bryant moved with purpose, every step measured, every drive deliberate. Yet Boston had returned, stronger, calmer, wiser. Paul Pierce and Ray Allen had found rhythm. Kevin Garnett's defensive presence was as imposing as ever. Game 1 began slowly, each possession deliberate, as if both teams feared the first mistake more than anything else. The Celtics struck first, using smart passing and patient offense to take control. Kobe, despite his limp, hit mid-range jumpers and drove whenever possible. Yet Boston's rotations were perfect, the ball moving faster than the eyes could follow. The game remained close until the final minutes. Every basket mattered. Every rebound was contested. When the buzzer sounded, Boston had edged the Lakers by 4. The silence in Los Angeles was palpable. Kobe simply nodded, walked to the locker room, and began planning the response. "We're not done," he whispered. "Not by a long shot." Game 2, Staples Center. Kobe's response was clinical. He attacked the rim relentlessly, scoring at will. Gasol dominated the paint, securing rebounds, contesting shots. Artest patrolled the perimeter, his defensive presence now fully trusted. The Lakers won Game 2, evening the series, but there was an unspoken understanding. This would not be settled easily. Every game, every possession would carry the weight of history. Game 3, TD Garden. Boston's home court was electric. The fans roared, a living entity that seemed to breathe with the players. The Celtics' experience shone through. Garnett's defense, Pierce's mid-range touch, Rondo's almost prescient passing. The Lakers struggled to find rhythm against Boston's stifling rotations. Kobe, battling pain in his knees and shoulder, scored 36 points, but even he could not will his team past the Celtics' discipline. Boston took Game 3, reclaiming control of the series. Game 4, TD Garden. Game 4 was perhaps the most dramatic of all. The Celtics led for most of the game, their bench contribution sustaining every run. The Lakers responded, Kobe hitting impossible shots, Gasol punishing the paint. Ron Artest, the former adversary, became a defender of legends, blocking shots that might have turned the tide. The final minute was a battle of wits and stamina. With seconds left, Kobe drove through the lane, contested by Garnett, and floated a shot over him. The ball hit the rim, bounced high, then fell harmlessly off the backboard. Boston won by a single point. The Lakers had faltered. "It's not about perfection," Kobe said later. "It's about rising every time you fall." Game 5, Staples Center. Returning to Los Angeles, the Lakers were silent, determined. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. Kobe attacked every possession with ruthless focus. Gasol found ways to dominate both scoring and rebounds. Artest, now fully integrated, defended with a quiet intensity that left fans holding their breath. The Lakers won, 103-94. The series was tied 2-3, and the finals had transformed into a war of wills. Game 6, TD Garden, Boston. Facing elimination, fought with desperation. Garnett was everywhere, defending the rim, grabbing boards, inspiring teammates. Pierce hit crucial jumpers. Rondo orchestrated. Orlando's experience had nothing on Boston's resolve. Yet Kobe was relentless. He scored 38 points, driving through traffic, refusing to yield. Gasol dominated again, Artest patrolled, and the Lakers clawed back, winning a tight game to force a decisive Game 7. "Legends aren't made in Game 1, Phil Jackson said. They are made in moments of unbearable pressure." Game 7, Staples Center, the final game. The arena trembled with the echoes of the past. Boston's chants, Los Angeles' cheers, the weight of decades of rivalry hung in the air. Kobe opened aggressively, scoring at will. Gasol punished the paint. Artest defended like a man possessed. Boston answered, of course. Garnett and Pierce never faltered. Rondo's passing remained precise, almost surgical. The fourth quarter was a slow-motion battle. Every basket was met with a counter. Every foul became a punctuation in the unfolding story. With less than 2 minutes remaining, the Lakers led by 3. Boston called timeout, huddled, tried to force a miracle, but the Lakers, calm, deliberate, and experienced, held their ground. Kobe drained a crucial jumper. Gasol grabbed the boards, and Artest sealed the defense. When the final buzzer sounded, the Lakers had done it. They had defeated Boston in 7 games. Kobe Bryant had finally exacted his revenge. "This is why we play," Kobe said quietly, tears brimming. "Not for glory, not for headlines, for moments like this." The Lakers were champions once more. The Celtics, noble and exhausted, had fought valiantly, their legacy intact, but the crown returned to Los Angeles. The aftermath. The 2010 finals had delivered everything a rivalry could: pain, redemption, triumph, despair. Kobe's obsession had met Boston's discipline. LeBron's season, though brilliant, had ended in the East. The Lakers' dynasty had endured. And yet, somewhere in the quiet, the league whispered the next era was coming. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and other young stars would rise. But for now, June belonged to Los Angeles. "We fight to leave something behind," Phil Jackson said softly. "And every season, history reminds us of the cost." Chapter 8. Aftermath and Legacy. The end of one era, the birth of another. The summer of 2010 arrived quietly, with only the soft whisper of memories lingering in arenas across the United States. Los Angeles basked in victory, the Lakers once more crowned champions. Staples Center, now empty, carried the echoes of Game 7, Kobe Bryant's triumphant drives, Gasol's calm dominance, Artest's vigilant defense. Each echo felt like a heartbeat in the long story of the game. For Kobe, the victory was both satisfaction and obsession. He had climbed the mountain again, proven himself against Boston, silenced doubts and exacted revenge for 2008. Yet the fire never dimmed. Even in celebration, his gaze was forward. "This is not the end," he said softly. "It's another chapter." In Cleveland, LeBron James departed the season with both brilliance and disappointment. He had won the MVP again, had carried the Cavaliers through long stretches of brilliance. Yet the Eastern Conference Finals reminded him of the elusive nature of victory. It was a quiet humiliation, though tempered by growth. He would leave Cleveland a year later, seeking to shape his own destiny elsewhere. But in 2010, the foundation was laid for a transformation the league would remember for decades. Boston's aging Warriors returned home with dignity intact. The Celtics had reached the finals, had pushed the Lakers to 7 games, and in the process reminded the world that experience, discipline, and wisdom could still command respect. Garnett, Pierce, Allen, and Rondo had played as a unit that transcended statistics, a team whose story would linger in fans' memories long after the final buzzer. And quietly, in Oklahoma City, a whisper of the future stirred. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden had survived their first playoff experience. They had glimpsed greatness, had tasted the intensity of playoff pressure, and had learned the cost of building a dynasty. The old guards had defended their thrones, but the seeds of a new era had already been sown. Across the league, the 2009 to 2010 season became a tale of transition. Old legends had tested themselves one last time. New stars had arrived quietly, waiting for their moment. Injuries, trades, and triumphs had shifted the balance. But the human drama, the obsession, the dedication, the rivalry, remained eternal. Kobe Bryant's legacy was sealed, but his journey continued. LeBron's story remained unfinished, a narrative of potential yet to be realized. Boston's triumph in challenge preserved the dignity of an era, and in the quiet shadows the next generation observed, learned, and prepared to rise. Basketball, like time, is cyclical. One era fades, another emerges, and the 2009 to 2010 NBA season was the fulcrum, the bridge between what had been and what was to come. "We play, we fight, we endure," Phil Jackson said, almost to the empty court. And in the end, History judges only what we leave behind. The lights dimmed across the arenas, the crowds dispersed, the banners hung, the trophies polished. Yet in every gym, in every empty locker room, the pulse remained. The heartbeat of the game, ever patient, ever waiting for the next story. And so the 2010 NBA season ended, not with a roar, but with the quiet certainty that the game would go on, that legends would rise, fall, and rise again, that new stars would emerge from shadows, carrying the weight of dreams, ambition, and history. The story of 2010, told in whispers and echoes, remained, and somewhere, late at night, a fan might turn off the lights, set the narration to play softly, and drift to sleep, dreaming of buzzer beaters, rivalries, and the endless rhythm of basketball's enduring pulse. And so, another season fades into memory. The echoes of the crowd have softened, the lights of the arena have dimmed, and somewhere, a ball still bounces in an empty gym, waiting for the next story to begin. Thank you for watching, and for listening. If you've enjoyed this quiet journey through the 2010 NBA season, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because the story continues. Next time, we'll relive the drama, the heartbreak, and the triumph of the 2011 NBA season. Until then, rest easy, and let the game play on in your dreams.